Thank you for staying with us. In case you're just joining us, this is the Daily Report. Time now for the conversation on power and politics. The conversation being, is the economy working for ground? I am George Maringa. On sign language interpretation this time is Rhoda Nyamai. My guests still here in studio, the Honorable Jude Njomo, former MP Kiambu, the Honorable Makali Mulu, Member of Parliament, Kitui Central. Also from ISPAC is Joshua Kamwere. He is a member of the Legislative Affairs Committee of ISPAC, and Maliba Arnold, Head of Policy and Public Affairs at UDA. Arnold, I want to begin with you for this second round. You said there is the macro and the micro, and the opinion, of course, is divergent and variant on this whole conversation. But a good number of Kenyans, even in the socials, seem to quite have an abrasive approach towards your party that has promised, to get things better over time. From your perspective, has there been a push and pull of trying to help, quote unquote, help Kenyans understand what you're doing?
I think one of the biggest problems we have had as a regime, I think, has been being stuck in what I call campaign communication mode as opposed to doing strategy communication. So with the failure of stratcoms, a lot of things have actually found us simply by not communicating properly. One of the reasons, and this is a personal opinion, one of the reasons I think we lost the finance bill wasn't entirely because it was as bad as it actually had been put out there. I took time and did a comparison between the previous finance law and what we were proposing. And from where I sit, I thought the other one was actually much harsher. But then we didn't communicate well. The Friday, just before 25th June, there was, we had just paid, I think, the Eurobond at that particular point. That didn't matter. A number of the proposals that were actually very sticky had actually been talked out of that particular piece of legislation, but we didn't communicate effectively. Still, the element, and that cannot, let's not really talk about what we've not done well, because sometimes they say a poor workman complains about tools. So the communication bit of it is problematic. That we should not run away from. Because why then would it take people to come out for us to come and give solutions or other answers and responses that should be completely communicated much earlier? I still see the same challenges in how we are communicating the transition from NHIF to Chief and Share. Some of those questions, you don't need people to come out to the streets or people to complain, for people to actually be explained to. Because there is rationale to why some decisions are made, but the explanations come after the fact. That, of course, then sows the seed around, people really not trusting government. So there's that bit. But also, you also have to accept that we have been through a very serious political phase. We've not really moved out from the Gen Z's demonstration as such. The country is still in a daze of sorts. So we've not moved away from that. And then there's the bandwagon effect. Regime bashing, and that for me, I still find it a little bit puzzling from them. Like, let's talk about the legislature, for example. They have got three main functions: to legislate, to oversight, and to do representation. Of course, representation comes first. But I still think that the weakest link in our governance, because if we're going to talk about this regime, there's a way we'll try to look at government as only the executive part of it.
Okay.
That for me, I think, is a failure in many ways, because the legislature plays a very important role. When you talk about budgeting, our parliament is not a late endorser to the budget making process as was in the days of old. Our parliament is a budget making body.
Okay.
So sometimes we want to run away from that part, not asking everybody to hold their part, that if parliament were to do their work properly, for example, we wouldn't have a lot of this anger. Like Mheshimiwa Mulu has said here, parliamentarians spend a lot of time on the ground. Every weekend, unless they've traveled out of the country, parliamentarians are actually on the ground. They listen more, they get much more from the people. You will get the same from MCAs. So if that sentiment was actually to be domiciled in parliament, then a lot of the policy directions that we've seen sometimes causing problems would actually not be what we see.
And secondly, that's a parliament that, legislators have opined, have received instructions from elsewhere.
I really, when they were elected, they didn't get the mandate from elsewhere.
They are here, they'll answer.
Well, I will not speak for them,
Oh.
but I would actually say that when they came to parliament, they did not get the mandate from elsewhere. They had the mandate from the people.
Okay.
So if we had to shorten that loop so that then we don't have to park this blame elsewhere, and I will still hold to this, that parliament is full of CDF managers as opposed to legislators. That's the truth.
Okay.
That we have got guys who really do not care about legislation, who don't care about policy, who don't care about oversight. All they care about is that they have their CDF, because if you take care of your CDF very well, by the way, you will be re-elected. That's the truth.
Okay.
So the core function, why parliament exists, actually has died on the altar of CDF. So as much as we will go round and round and round that, this is not a blame we can pack in one post and talk about the executive really being to blame. And I'm talking about budget here specifically because, like I said, Parliament is not a late endorser to the budget making process like it used to be. Okay. This Parliament that we have, the Parliament that comes in from 2013 onwards, is a budget making body. So they can't run away from that.
Okay.
But let me give you an example before we go away. The finance bill, well, let's talk about the finance bill that caused all these problems. A lot of members of Parliament could not even articulate that better. They didn't know exactly how to get around with it. And so you allow a few of them to sloganeer around it, a serious policy document like that. You allow them to sloganeer around that, and then you lose it. So we are here again, and even as we talk about the tax amendment laws that are actually coming, you can actually see, look at the headlines today. We are already building a momentum towards a rejection of the same. So if there is no proper communication to counter that, and unless parliamentarians again come out and do their work, we will be in the same place. And if you think that if this regime, let's talk about quote unquote, the executive fails, then you actually are safe, you are actually not being honest, because see the fiscal interruptions that we've had. The budgetary cycle has actually been interrupted, of course, with the Gen Z demonstrations. You can actually see how the ground feels. All of us feel it in the pocket. So there's only one Kenya, and the burden for us to deliver that Kenya is for all of us.
All while at it, as I know the gentleman mentioned, the 10% has already been taken in just than 2 years.
No, actually, he said that government is doing well. Government cannot be doing well if it cannot remit the devolution funds in time.
All right.
Government cannot be doing well if it's still going about looking for money. If we cannot provide public goods, then it's not true that government is doing well. Unless his way of doing well is to cause people pain. Okay. If people are complaining of pain, then government is not doing well.
The government spokesperson, Isaac Mora, earlier on had a press statement that he issued, and let's just look at some of the key highlights from that press statement. He says the government has set in motion the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, the Better Plan, which prioritizes job creation, income distribution, and economic stability. This agenda drives our commitment to achieving an economic environment that allows all Kenyans to thrive. He says, apart from that, he also says that the government is committed to implementing policies that not only address the current fiscal needs, but also aims to strengthen our nation's economic foundation for the future. And also, he says, our goal is to develop an economy that relies more on robust domestic revenue generation than on foreign debt. Mheshimiwa Jude, Parliament has a responsibility, picking up from what Arnold Maliba was speaking, and we'll come to you. I know you
I just wanted to ask you a question before Mheshimiwa Jude comes in.
Oh, you want me to ask?
Yes, as a journalist, what do you understand from that statement? That is a non-communication. Let's also note, because that's too much English. As in, if you were Wanjiku watching that and just going through that statement you've said, has he communicated anything? As a journalist seated there, what has he said? So now, that's what I'm saying.
Do you think, that's
what I'm saying. That's I'm saying. People are asking for straight communication.
Yes.
People are asking. That is government communication.
It's an indictment on your...
That's what I'm telling you. I come from the party. I do political communication. Okay. So I should be spinning, right? But I'm telling you, if you read that, George...
Too much English.
You are a journalist. You have got tertiary education. What do you understand from that? People are talking about basics. That English is what is giving us problems. And the more we actually allow that, the more we lose the population.
Okay.
Judge, I think Arnold has done it very well.
Now you can actually proceed and allow.
He has indicted himself. Because he has said one of the things that the current regime is failing is communications. Then he has told us that he's in charge of some strategic communications in the UDA party.
Yes.
And the UDA party is part of the Kenya Kwanza government, so they are lacking that communication. But the main problem, we don't even see that lack of communication. To the mwananchi, what we lack is trust. You see, we have gone through so many lies that have been portrayed by those who are in power, both from the very top to even those who are at the very bottom. The promises that we are giving wananchis are becoming empty promises. So when we come today and we read in the news that now our, and I'll speak like Wanjiku now, when we are told that the GDP, the inflation has come down from this level to 2%, we don't even listen much because we are thinking this is just the kind of noise we've been hearing, this is the kind of promises that we've been hearing, these are the same lies that we have been told that are coming back today. What we listen is our pocket. What is our pocket saying? Now, I know that one of the things that have been repeated so many times is that the price of unga has gone down. I thank God for that. The rains have been good. The harvest have been good because there was a good if the crop was bad, the prices of unga would still be very, very high. What we were promised that on this bottom-up economic formula, where we are expecting that policies that are going to be made are going to benefit those who are at the bottom, is not happening today. We are seeing policies that are only benefiting those who are at the top. So I would say, and I would say that really it has become very, very harsh for those who are experiencing this economy at the grassroots. It's very, very difficult. It's not only for farmers, it's not only for business people. Everywhere, people are complaining. And the people who are supposed now to communicate to the people, I'm talking about our members of parliament, I'm talking about the MCAs. Most of the people, especially who was elected from my area, the Mount Kenya region, were elected on UDA ticket. They have now run away from the people. They don't want to go and talk on behalf of the people. He said very well that one of the key functions of a member of parliament is to represent the people. People do not feel represented because their needs do not go to parliament. Members of parliament are doing contrary to their expectations of the people who elected them. You know? And a good example is what he has said about the finance bill. People, when they did public participation, people said, no, we do not want this finance bill for whatever ills that were there. But our own members of parliament went to Bunge and they voted for the finance bill. So the people feel that they are not represented by their members of parliament. And that is where the big disconnect is.
Okay. Mheshimiwa Makali Mulu, you're a current member of parliament. A lot has been said about this specific parliament. But when you look at the issue of trust deficit and what you're feeling from the ground and what Maliba has spoken about, in terms of, as a country, it was likened to the 2002 period, where the country was coming from a harsh economic period. And when President Kibaki at the time asked and said Kenyans need to pay taxes, there didn't seem to be an objection per se. And Kenyans rallied up and, paid the taxes, tulipe ushuru tujitegemee. And it was something that was properly embraced. Whereas the government is saying ABCD, the macros are going down, as he says, but then the feeling in the pocket is not commensurate. Where is the disconnect in your view?
You know, George, the more I listen to Maliba, the more I believe that they have a problem. Let's look at it.
Okay.
When you look at the inflation, the targeted inflation in Kenya, is always 5 plus 2.5 minus 2.5.
Yeah.
So the upper side should be 7.5, the lower side should be 2.5.
2.5, yeah.
Which means even now we have not gone beyond the lowest.
Yeah.
But what is critical is, even if it came to 1% and people have no money in their pocket to buy anything, like Kamwere said, they have taken more from Kenyans than they are claiming to have given them through inflation. So in that case, Kenyans are becoming more worse. But the issue of communication, I'm asking myself, even as we say they have challenges in communication, maybe the way their language, but to me the question is, do they have anything to communicate? Is there anything to be communicated? Because if there's nothing to be communicated, even if you use simple language, or use English, or use Kiswahili, or use the vernacular, it will still remain there's nothing to be communicated. To me, that's basically the challenge we are facing is, we have people who believe that they are doing well. But on the ground, people are not feeling that improvement. And for sure, you have mentioned President Kibaki. I don't think Kibaki had a hard time communicating to Kenyans that the economy is doing well. People could feel it. Talk to any border in this country, they will tell you, we enjoyed Kibaki's regime. Talk to any farmer in this country, they will tell you, we enjoyed Kibaki's regime. Talk to any student, they will tell you we enjoyed, because they were experiencing, those good things at that time.
They will tell you there was no pandemic, there was no...
No, there's not. These are excuses, let me tell you. Okay. There's no way, when you talk about international economics and international arena, there will always be things which work for the government, there will always be things which work against the government. And it's the work of the government in power to mitigate against some of those things. So, for example, when the price of oil now is coming down, the international prices, and Akamweda has mentioned that. How come that in our pump prices, we are not feeling that? Because taxation is taking sustains the levels. The price is coming down, but anytime the price comes down, the government comes with a way of increasing the taxes. So Kenyans remain the same place. At the same time, they are taking away from our pay slips. The SHA, the NSSF, all those kind of, and you have heard Kenyans saying, they wish the government was able to take what they are retaining and then the taxes, they are given the taxes because they will be better off. Mm-hmm. To me, this is the situation in the country. And if I were the one in power, I would be more worried. Because if you are leading people and they keep on saying we are getting worse every day, and you don't seem to be coming with the strategy to improve their lives, then we have a problem. Okay. Anybody who talks about parliament in this country, George, I've been a member of parliament since 2013. I served with my colleague here, 11th parliament. I've been a member of parliament, 12th parliament. I'm a member of parliament in the 13th parliament. I can say here, on telly, so that Kenyans can hear, there is no parliament which has suffered the kind of capture, executive capture, this parliament has suffered. And that's why when I listen to Maliba talking about parliament, and legislation and all that, I don't know whether he watches the TV. The other day, when the impeachment time, it took less than a day and a half to have Kachako impeached and to have Kidiki in office. Parliament already cleared Kidiki in less than 20 minutes that he can. So the parliament we have, currently the 13th parliament, I think is wanting, and that is not a secret.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to rely on parliament to save this country, I'm sure that they will wait till Jesus comes back. Maybe the 14th parliament can change things, but this one, the way I look at it, I think we are prepared. So the thing is, let's just let the executive serve Kenyans. We have given them a mandate. They are collecting taxes. I'm an expert in budgeting, and I can talk any matters budget without even when I'm asleep. And I can tell you for sure, the same capture which has been served in the legislature when you are doing the bills, is the same which is in the budgeting.
Okay.
And you have heard us talk openly that this country has a challenge when it comes to equitable distribution of resources. Issues of equity are major in this country.
Okay.
Maybe the parliament needs to be told who they represent, because they have stopped representing wananchi and they are representing other interests in parliament.
Joshua, was there a situation of a promising while unaware of the current, or rather the times that they would be getting into, that is the UDA government, or rather this government in general, so that then there was the promise of all these, promises that were made, economic development, Wi-Fi, everything, all that was promised, juxtaposing with the situation you are in. What needed to be handled fast so that then some things can be gradual? Because Kenyans are saying, as Mheshimiwa said here, there are some who are saying, let us be given the taxes, then they take the rest. Was there an issue of not balancing the math? Was the math not mathing?
For sure, math was not mathing. I think we were promised so much than what you could be able to hold within 5 years. And one of the critical issues which Kenya need to be having in their mind is that all these promises we were told that we'll have roads, we'll have stadiums, we'll have all these items. We were never told how they'll be financed. And the moment this government came into power, they actually told us that Kenyan, you're undertaxed. Our tax to GDP is about 14%. This government want to push it to about 22%.
22%.
So what that means is, even as we are crying and saying that kwa ground things are not good, we should fasten our safety belts and ensure that we are ready for what we are going to get in the next 3 years. Because some of the issues which the government is having, and for example, we are complaining about us losing 10% in a span of about 9 months. We have an issue on NSSF whereby currently we are employees are contributing a maximum of 2,000. In the next 3 years, you'll be contributing 8,000. So it means that almost someone earning 150,000, be ready that 5% will get off your pay slip because that will go to NSSF. And coming to what Mariba have mentioned about, and I agree with what Honorable Member for Kitui Central is saying about the capture of Parliament, you realize that some of the legislation coming forth, you tend to wonder whether we don't have technocrats who look at them. And I give you an example of these SHA or Universal Health Coverage Acts. One of the key issues we realized in last month is that employees were expecting to get personal relief from contribution to SHA, the way we used to get it from NHIF. But all of a sudden, it's not a personal relief and you don't get any benefit out of it. Whereas in NHIF, employees were enjoying something from it, 15% of your contribution. That is no longer there. That's what we are waiting for the new finance bill to come into being so that we can be able to get those benefits. And some of the proposals which are coming on this finance bill, for example, and I give an analogy of a cow. The cow which have produced a lot of milk in the world has been 110 liters a day. Even if today we have a cow in Kiambu and we feed with the best meals, the best veterinary doctors, we cannot get 120 liters of milk from that cow. But what this government is saying is that as long as you, as a cow, I have to milk you to 120 liters. So you are going to milk the milk and milk the blood. Because if you want to get more milk, then add another cow so that we can be able to get more milk. But what the government is doing, as opposed to us expanding the tax base, we want to milk the milk and milk the blood. Eventually the cow will die and will not be able to generate that revenue which government so expects. So some of the proposals coming in, for example, they've said on the proposals we have currently, is that a multinational coming in Kenya, you are supposed to have a minimum tax you're paying to the government, 15%. And it's a backward thinking because when a multinational comes here and employs 10,000 people or 5,000 people in a remote area, say in Naivasha or any other economic zone, you bring, you grow that economy by employing people. Say you employ 2,000 people, they will have, the government will get pay as you earn, they'll be able to support their families. But what the government is targeting is on one aspect of tax, corporate tax from this entity, and they are saying that you must pay at least 15% without looking on what will be the trickle-down effect if an entity comes. For example, if you have a manufacturing unit opening in Naivasha and it employs a lot of people, what will be the impact on the society? But we are single-handedly looking on some issues without looking at the whole ecosystem, and that's why we are failing as a government. And the analogy of us trying to milk more milk from the cow, we are even ready to milk the blood, then that's where we are missing the point.
So they should go easy on the milking.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I respond to a few things just before you ask a question? Quickly, actually.
Okay.
Number one, I agree that the economy is like a woman. You don't have to say you are a woman if you are a woman. If you have to say you are a woman, you are not a woman. The economy, again, is like heat. You don't have to see it, but you will feel it. But having said that, there's a lot of intellectual dishonesty in having this conversation. That when, for example, we have got an issue of inflation shooting up, we blame it on the administration of the day. But when it goes down, we actually want to put it on externalities, talking about elsewhere. Yet, when it goes down, or when it goes up, it's the doing of the government of the day. I think we cannot run with the hares and also hunt with the hounds. Then, secondly, Mheshimiwa Makali here has really asked very good questions. Unfortunately, he is the person we actually depend on for those answers, because he comes from Parliament, that is the people's house, and that is where those answers should be obtained. If the person that should be getting the answers for us is asking the same, then what happens to us? He's spoken about executive capture. You know, the role of Parliament is constitutional, meaning no one else can do it. So when he's actually saying that the executive should just serve the people, and we forget about the Parliament where he sits, no one else is able to do what Parliament should be doing. I think that parliamentarians should remember one thing. When I hear about executive capture, no one goes to people's homes. I'm talking about let's talk about the National Assembly. The 349 of them, you can add the speaker there and make it 350, all of them, and tell them that this is where you will be answering to. They have got the supreme employer, who are the people, and this is the people he's speaking for when he says that the people do not feel it, but then again conflates and says that Parliament is already a lost cause and it answers elsewhere. So we then are lost. How do we go about that? Okay. I think it should just be fair that Parliament does its job. Like I said, the weakest link in our governance remains Parliament. It's been so since 2013. That one we should not run away with. And you see, for them, it's so easy and almost convenient to always park the blame at the door of the executive, as if the executive determines how they are re-elected. When they go home, they say we are speaking for the people. I think it's just time when parliamentarians stopped this blame shifting and did their damn work. Everybody should do their work. By the way, if you realize that even in the Gen Z demonstrations, it is Parliament that received the most heat. Lest we forget that. So let them continue parking the blame on the door. Okay. Of the executive, and you know they've been clever. Just allow me to say something.
Because education is important, if you allow me, because this gentleman has never been a member of Parliament, possibly I can educate him. Look at the way our governance, the architecture of our governance structure. Most of us are elected through party lines. So what normally happens, and that's why I'm saying Parliament, if Kenyans are expecting Parliament to save them, they wait for long. UDA is the political advisor to UDA. UDA is about 140-something members. It's 140-something about in Parliament, 146. Now, normally what would happen, he knows they normally have a parliamentary group meeting. Now, if they go to a parliamentary group meeting and the party takes a position, I'm sure he knows better what would happen. Ask him now, how many members of Parliament who went against the impeachment of the Deputy President are aligned for punishment? Some will be removed from chair committees. So the way our governance structure is done, it makes political parties so powerful that unless we change that, members of Parliament will always be, because as a member of Parliament, I know my work. But at times you find the opposition takes externally there, which you may not be able to really address. And that's what I'm saying, really, like now, I can tell you for sure. That's why you see when it comes to voting. And you know, Parliament is a democracy. The majority will always have their way. Minority will accept that they will have their say. So some of us who have been the minority always will have our say. But democracy demands those who are the majority will have their way. So in a situation where you come and get voting machines, people just say yes on anything. And as you said, he has said, is it him who said that there are cases, and I think it's Kamwan who said, there are times them as people who are out there and experts wonder whether parliamentarians take time to think through some of these clauses.
Let's pick some.
Basically, that's the reason.
Some feedback from Kenyans, and even you'll interact with Arnold. Thanks for the show. About the economy, out here, it's not rosy. There seems a disconnect between the president and the ground feelings economically. Collection of taxes seems a lot, but we don't feel these resources in return. Unemployment is a time bomb. Government is assuring that. Can't they incentivize the private sector to improve employment and ensure fairness in public service employment so as to reduce youth hostility towards government at the moment? They are becoming hopeless day by day. Tell the president the truth on the ground. Thank you. That's Cornelius. Do you think there needs to be a shift in these policies and in these structures, Arnold?
Yes, there is need to actually move away from the way we've been doing politics. And I'll go back to June 25th and tell you that Kenya changed from June 25th. If anyone really thinks that this country is still the same as it were in the days of old, they actually are lost. One of the things we've done, for example, at UDA is that we've decided that we will deliberately go to the ground and talk to the people as it is. We will not muzzle people. We will take that hit and listen to them. There has been a disconnect, and that's why I'm telling you, one of the reasons why I actually feel that it's not wise of us to actually say that Parliament is a lost cause. We must remind Parliament what it does. Because Article 1 and Article 2 are about the sovereignty of the people, and there is no serious organ in this country other than Parliament. But just to actually put it differently, Parliament is Kenya's NDC, the National Delegates Conference.
That's true.
That is the highest organ. So when that highest organ, we are told by them that sit there that it can't do anything, then what do we have? We don't have a republic. I do not want us to actually keep on bringing in the issues of executive capture and capture from elsewhere, because at the end of the day, they face the electorates alone. When you go home, by the way, you never go with the escort. You could actually have a bodyguard. But when you meet the wrath of the people, those people know you are home. They know your relatives. For members of parliament and MCAs, everybody knows where you are coming from. So there is need to shift away. That's why I asked you that with that sentence you read from Mwaura, did you understand it? And then Mwananchi, the local Mwananchi, understand it. And George, you actually, even that smile tells me that it looks like it's an educated statement. But what is it saying? Is it speaking to the issues that people are speaking about? And the people are so specific.
I'm actually smiling because it's an indictment on your own party.
Well, as in, you see, we must get to a place.
Okay.
George, we must get to a place. No, look at this. I was actually seated before my own television at about 3:23 p.m. on 25th June. And I saw us almost losing the republic. I have not forgotten. And I remember telling the people I was watching with in the house and told them, as those guys surge, there are going to be bodies in the next 10 minutes. And immediately there was a fallback. We started seeing images of those bodies. I have not forgotten that. If we continue being politically correct and not telling people, let me tell you, George, something else. There is the Hustler Fund as the president promised the people of Kenya. One of the policies that is actually causing us a lot of heat, you know that as a person who comes to TV regularly, I am one of those people who actually face the heat. You know that. So I'm telling you, there is the hustler that we promised Kenyans, and then there is the Hustler Fund as is being administered. You can actually see the disconnect. So the technical people must stop technicaling, they must stop a lot of English, and present those things as we have promised.
George, we are all speaking like Mwaura. Even us here.
So
we are all speaking like Mwaura because we are not presenting any solution.
Let's listen to
We are just reviewing what has been happening. We are just looking at theories. But what is happening to us is that as a country, we are not able to feed ourselves. Over 60 years after our independence, we are still importing maize, our stable food. We are still importing wheat. We are still importing sugar. We are still importing rice. When are we going to stand on our own feet? Yet we are in a stable country. We are in a very productive country. We have rivers flowing in our country, delivering their water to Indian Ocean and Lake Victoria unused. We are not irrigating. We are still depending on heavens. We are still depending on rains to do our agriculture. And when the government provides some money to do agriculture, we take it to Galana, you know, and the money is wasted. If this would have been invested in farmers who are making profit, they would be making food for our country. We are making wrong decisions because we are investing our national wealth on only a very small fraction on our population, which is not becoming very productive. What happened to our Agricultural Finance Corporation? What happened to those funding agents who were funding farmers so that they can become productive? What is happening to our banks that they are not giving our small-scale business people, our small-scale fund? They are not getting funded. And if they get funding, the interest is so high. Yeah? Because we are competing with government to borrow from the same banks. Those are the policies that should be changed so that we get people we get money to the people so that they can make profit and they can produce our food. If we address ourselves to those very basic things, then all this kizungumigi we are talking about will cease. Let us do the very, very basic things. You know, let our members of parliament know that they are representing us and they are not representing the executive in that house. Joshua, and let them not tell us that they are going to be removed from their chairman. We did not elect them to become chairmen of committees. We elected them to become members of parliament. I remember when I was in parliament, I spearheaded the introduction of law to cap interest rate. The whole government was against it. But I fought on, I soldiered on, and we were able to get that. That is the kind of spirit I would expect even other members of parliament to fight, even if they lose their chairmanship positions.
We'll come to you, Mheshimiwa, but Joshua, let's, as we enter the home stretch of this conversation, you've spoken about the things that need to change. From a policy perspective, I mean, too much English seems to be an issue here. But in terms of trying to look at things that would not only be good on paper, but also the feeling, the heat then reduces, so that then is there a possibility where we can say, post this, we work on this first? What would you be able to identify as perhaps a cure to this whole issue of the economy?
In terms of what we need to do to jumpstart the economy, we are not, for example, if you look on our GDP, and we say about 20 to 25% is agriculture, and about 18 to 20% is manufacturing. When you look on our budgeting cycle, that talks about 40% we know where it comes from, and there are industries or sectors which can be able to, to touch on every Kenyan, whether in the city or in rural or urban areas. But you find that the proposals we bring on the budget do not focus, for example, on how to upscale agriculture and have value addition, because as Mheshimiwa Jude is saying, if you want to focus on agriculture, and we say that that's where we get our livelihood from, we are importing all those items he is mentioning. But do we have mechanism where we are able to protect our Kenyan farmers so that we can give them access to market? Because farming is not an issue. People can farm in Kenya, but they don't have access to market. If there is no access to market, or we have a lot of post-harvest losses, then this farmer, next time, this season, you are going to farm very well your cabbages or your maize. But as long as you don't get access to market, or you are not able to take your goods to the market, then it means that next time you are not going to farm. And that's what has made our farmers, lose interest in farming. So some of the initiatives which were coming through Finance Bill 2024 was to, have some tariffs on import of certain commodities. But again, it came with other issues which were affecting Kenyans more, and that's why the whole bill was rejected. When you come on and see what the government is proposing now, the new measures they are proposing on the finance bill, nothing really touches on how to promote agriculture and manufacturing or construction sectors, if they are any very minimal. So those tariffs that we had on Finance Bill 2024 are not coming on the finance bill that is being proposed by a majority leader from parliament. So we don't give focus where we are supposed to have focus on, because if you look on these sectors which are very dear to Kenyans, and even from the KRA collections, some of the areas where they didn't meet targets in terms of revenue collections was on manufacturing, finance and insurance and construction sectors. These are sectors which employ, Mama Boga, the boda person. They employ a lot of people in that ecosystem, but as long as we are not promoting those sectors, then we just continue having, good English, and to a local mwananchi, we say that ni stories za jaba, because you keep on telling us it's not helping me. So it's ni stories za jaba all the time, because you are not focusing on the sectors which is going to make the ordinary Kenyans improve their livelihood. When you talk about free fertilizers, the folks in the village, they don't get it. You'll be told that it's there on a, on a depot, but you are limited to 2 bags. So if you are supposed to have mass production, say you plant 1 acre, you cannot use 2 bags of fertilizer to be able to, improve your yield or your productivity on your 1 acre. So some of the things we are having that government is initiating, yes, but we need to know, if you're saying that we are giving fertilizer at a lower price, how much yield from Trans Nzoia 1 acre was producing how many bags, and now because we are giving this fertilizer an affordable price, this is how the yield or productivity has improved. So we are not focusing on the key sectors which is supposed to create jobs and to be able to ensure that ordinary Kenyans have access to money so that they can feel that they have money in the pocket. And I think the other thing which this government and the leadership is keep on saying is that when Kibaki came in, we had people that tulipe ushuru tujitegemee, so people used to pay taxes. But what the leadership is not telling us, Kibaki never introduced new taxes. Kibaki said, comply.
Comply.
The reason why people are not paying taxes is because you load us on this tax, you load another one, you load another one. So they are fed up. And every taxpayer is looking on a way of, how can I avoid this tax? Yes.
Arnold Maliba and Ghetto President on Facebook is saying the economy will improve when Mama Mboga and Boda Boda people, their businesses are stable. What is the way forward? Is there hope? Earlier on, we've listened to Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi just about last year saying, give the government time. Do we still have time, or how much time is left, Arnold, to be able to say, okay, fine, we're at a place where everyone can feel? Whereas, of course, you cannot get 100% agreement on how things are, but a majority to be able to say and feel fine, we are getting somewhere.
First of all, it's important to actually underscore the fact that the bottom-up economic transformation agenda is a proper diagnostics, is a proper diagnosis of where we are as a country. So we got their diagnosis right. What we are not getting right is the treatment. And you see, you can actually properly diagnose a situation.
Where will the doctors come from to treat?
So we really need, it's the doctors to actually pull up their socks. And that's what I'm saying. We cannot leave the burden of proper communication to the president alone. Now, he is lucky he has got a deputy now who actually can give him a backup. But we still need the heads of MDAs, those are ministries, departments, and agencies, to actually come out. Sometimes you will be talking about an issue in a certain department and you never hear anything from the minister, you hear nothing from the PS, you hear nothing from the MD of that particular agency. You could have a problem about water and you hear nothing from the chairperson, if it's the water towers or anything like that. So ministers, PSs, MDs, and people who are in those particular departments, you cannot then allow the whole department to be, the whole government to be shouldering a burden of a simple explanation. I'll tell you, George, sometimes we come here and have this conversation. Once you go back and seek for the information, you realize that the spins that are out here is simply because somebody has got information and they seated on it. I have been watching parliamentary sessions. You wonder why we took so long debating those issues, having hashtags and people trending about it. When somebody shows up in parliament, having been called before a parliamentary committee, and he has got all the facts, all along they had all that information, we need to actually tell CSS and PSS and heads of agencies to start speaking up. I want to give you an example. When is the last time you had anybody from the board, the Uwezo Fund, not the Uwezo Fund, the Hustler Fund board talk? Do you even remember who the chair is? Do you know who are the board members? So we are here, Kenyans are talking about this particular issue, and we have got a board from the Hustler Fund. They say nothing, they do nothing, they're so silent. Even if you met them, you will never know they're there, yet we pay them for it. Either they believe in the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, or they don't. You cannot be a minister and everybody else, parliament is making noise about an issue, you are not saying anything. You are a PS in that department, you're not talking about it. So the president needs proper help as he moves forward to communicate his agenda and even his progress. I have looked at some documents, especially on how we are implementing progress reports from the Council of Economic Advisors from the president. You look at the scores we've done and you realize that the government has done so much. But even the ministers and the PSS from that department don't talk about it. So, number one, we got the diagnosis right. Number two, the people who are working on it must also tell people that we are doing something about it. The Swahili say, ganga za mganga huwa zinampatia mgonjwa matumaini. Imagine if you are out there, people are talking about this situation, and the people from those departments are not saying anything. What do you think about it? You feel doomed because no one is speaking about it.
But George,
halfway, just a moment. Halfway before we go to the other side, when we talk about Kibaki, people forget that Kibaki put in place policies that made him so unpopular that he lost a referendum in 2005. If you look at the difference between the Bomas draft and the constitution we have, is less than 3%. The difference is less than 3%. It's literally the same document with a little bit of tweaks here and there. But he lost it not because the document was bad, but because the policies then were bad. I've looked at the headlines at that particular point. It was so bad. The changes Kibaki made between 2002 and 2007 were so bad that he lost an election in 2007, and we had a post-election violence. So before we forget that, it's easy to actually celebrate the good things that came out of what appeared to be unpopular policies there. That's what I'm telling you. If you look at the bottom-up approach to things, at the moment it looks bad. But if you look at what we're trying to do, eventually it will work out. Like in a year's time, George, in a year's time, in a year's time, if the chief and SHA works properly, we will get re-election, and everybody, including those on this table, will not look at any other thing.
But the hospitals,
so we just need to onboard.
Are still deplorable.
It's the onboarding process that is problematic.
George, what I was saying is that Arnold is speaking from both sides of his mouth.
Okay, just briefly.
He told us that if you're a woman, you don't have to come here and tell us you're a woman. We will see. And now he's talking about people are not communicating whether the Hustler Fund is working. If the Hustler Fund was working, we would not need anybody to communicate. we would see people celebrating that they have the Hustler Fund has changed their lives. We don't need any communication. What we need those people to do is to do the work that they have been employed to do. Let them make sure that those government policies work and they are going to have effect on the people on the ground who are benefiting from those programs.
Anyway, thank you, George. Let me say this. I think from what Arnold is saying, I agree with him to some extent.
Okay.
The truth of the matter is, when you look at the policies on paper, Kenyans know where their problems are. Where we are not getting it right is the implementation part of it. We have very good policies, but when it comes to implementation, we are facing challenges, and we don't seem to be working on those challenges. I want to give an example.
Yes, please.
For example, the agriculture sector. From what Mheshimiwa was saying here, importation of maize, wheat, and all that. The reason why people are not improving the agriculture sector so that they continue importing is because of the cuts coming from that. When you import sugar and you play around and you don't pay taxes, that's why people are millionaires in a day, billionaires. People who were the other day could not even afford a good car now. They're driving 10 cars which you cannot afford. The other thing is we are not talking about this. And I think this is very critical for our discussion. This government must control government expenditure if we have to go far. We are spending beyond our means. And I think it's time we tightened our belts and started living within our means.
Such as?
What it means is look at the way they are spending their resources.
Okay.
Like now, with all these collections, the SHA collection, the NSF collection, the rates are higher than what used to be. Which means they should be collecting more than the other governments have been collecting. But they're doing very little with that more. So these to me are the questions. Where is this money they are collecting, which is more than they have been collecting? Where is this money going? The other point which we are not addressing, I think it's better we address it. Unless we address the issues of corruption in this country, corruption is another big elephant in the room. We might not discuss it today, but even if we raise as much resources as what, and we don't address corruption issues, we will not go anywhere. The fourth item is the appetite for borrowing. It looks like everybody thinks the more you borrow, the better the country becomes. But the question is, when do we apply our loans? You find that we are borrowing money, but in terms of application of the money we are borrowing, to get value for that money, there are question marks. And to me, these are 4 areas. If we got it right, even this Kenya Kwanza government might be able to be re-elected. But unless we get that right, I can tell you for sure, they have only at least 1 year to change their image. If they don't do it, they are gone. And I can tell you for sure where Kenyans are today, I think they will have to do a lot of work to change what Kenyans are thinking about the government.
Mheshimiwa Jude, what's the cure to this?
I just wanted to add one more thing that must change.
Okay.
And it's what I call mtadu attitude. Because we are having things being done.
You're the one laughing now, Arnold.
Yeah? Things being done. And you can see seriously these are bad things being done. And people are complaining. But those who are doing wanasema mtadu, you are still going to do it. You abduct people, it's police who have abducted. You say, the police say, no, it is not the police, mutadu. Bad policies are made. Decisions are made on investment of government money, not based on the need of the country, but because of who is going to get what from that contract. And we know very well what is going to happen, but the attitude is mutadu. So unless that attitude changes, so that we do investment, we do things that are going to help Wajiko to move from point A to point B, that is the only thing that is going to change our country. We must have people who are thinking about progress of our country. Otherwise, we are going to keep on going down. We are going to have theories that our economy is doing well, yet our people are always complaining because they can't even feed themselves.
Yeah, Joshua.
Just to rejoice to what Maliba is saying about, the people in MDAs are not, promoting better transformation program. Is it that what Maliba is telling us, also the party leader believes in what he is saying? Because if we have ministers or we have people on higher hierarchy in government and they are not championing or, telling the citizenry that this is what the government is doing, does it mean that they don't believe in this agenda and then they should, give chance to other Kenyans who believe in better program, then they can be able to take us where we want to go. But from where we are coming from, and as I said on those tidbits when we started it, this economy is, we are floating. We are not moving backwards or forward, but we are floating. And this floating has been managed, for example, on FX, because when we talk about companies in NSC are doing very well, we all know that majority of those companies have debt in FX, in USD or Euro. So when the rates are down, they'll be profitable. But the fact of the matter is, when we go and borrow, and for example, we invest in a road, what is the return of investment of a road? In terms of the payback period for a road, it might be 30, 40 years. So you are borrowing a loan of 20 years or 10 years to build a project which will give you returns in 30 years. So it means you'll have a deficit and you'll have a problem when you're coming to pay this debt. But because we need to jumpstart the economy, why can't we take this 10-year debt or 15 years debt and come and do simple projects, for example, economic stimulus program, which will be able to generate revenue in terms of employing people or people being able to have access to market or value addition, then we can be able to pay off this debt of 10, 15 years. But as long as we take 10, 15 years loans and we want to invest in a project which is going, the payback period will be 20, 25 years, then we are in a very rude shock in the future.
Gentlemen, I want us to think of, each of you, as a statement, 1 minute each that perhaps you leave Kenyans pondering with. And I'll begin with you, Arnold. You can speak about the future, what it looks for this party. You've onboarded, there is a new deputy president, and you've said, he'll be able to support the president. Looking at and speaking to Kenyans who are watching and wondering, will we ever get to a place where the same drive they had when they came out to vote for your party is the same drive they will be able to embrace this government on the sense of ownership?
Governments are simply a manifestation of the people. The economy is a lot of times a representation of the work we do as a people, and we, the people, are the cogs upon which the economy runs on. So the Kenya Kwanza administration came out, number one, on the promise of stabilizing the economy. It has actually been able to do that. It's stabilized the economy. It's stabilized the runaway prices. We've dealt with the issues. Those are issues people don't want to talk about, but last year, those were the issues we were talking about. Runaway prices on basic commodities have been taken care of. The inflation bit of it that we are now raining on the parade for it actually has worked around. Then when we talk about the prices of food going down, I have had Mheshimiwa coming up, and we shouldn't be a sadist country where when we do not have food like we had scarcity last year, knowing too well that in 2022 we had the longest drought in a very long time, we say that we have got food only on the basis because it rained. So we thank God for that. But when there is drought and there is scarcity, we blame the government of the day. I don't know if that's not even speaking from both sides of the mouth. That is not even now speaking from the mouth. It speaks from you are speaking from something else. We need to be fair. We need to be so fair so that then when we come out to talk about these issues, regime bashing is not oversight. Regime bashing is not journalism. Regime bashing, George, is not activism. So that when we come here and are talking about these issues, we should look at the economy as a living organism.
Okay.
Not everything can be perfect, but it can be explained. That is why I said from the very beginning that all the metrics that government is talking about, if you compare that to last year, there has been an improvement. You can actually attribute that to rain, if you so wish, the way they are saying. You can attribute that to the inflation going down globally. Somehow, that is a phenomenon, but then it's not equal with our neighbors. But then when it goes down, it is the blame of the regime of the day.
All right. That is
so, how do you embrace this particular party? UDA, unfortunately, is the party of today and tomorrow. It's the party of young people. It's the party that is going out, and at the moment, for example, we are doing the comrades chapters. We are going to university students. And after that, we are starting Mama Mboga conversations. We will come to you so that you tell us how you feel and how we can fix it.
All right. Joshua, 30 seconds.
My 30 seconds, I think my comment is, as I mentioned, Kenya is doing well, and that's what Honorable Mulu said, that we are doing well in terms of macroeconomics. The same urge that the government has been able to stabilize the economy, for them to be re-elected, or for us as Kenyan to feel that we are moving in the right trajectory, we need that energy to be put on micro economics, so that's where the common mwananchi will be able to feel the heat. And lastly, I want to urge the leadership and the government to ensure that don't milk the blood.
Okay.
Just milk the milk.
Three important points in 2 seconds.
Yes.
The first one, Kenyans out there, what you are calling ground, don't care about what policies are there, how you implement them. They care about the final product, the outcomes. So can we focus more on the outcomes and not the processes?
Okay.
Point number 2, the Kenya Kwanza government has been very good at talking. I think time has come to do more in terms of implementation. The last one, I think as Kenyans we are losing our country. It might be the time to reclaim our country. And that will take a lot of effort so that we get back. Kenya belongs to Kenyans who are down there. It doesn't belong to us who are sitting at this table.
Okay.
So it's important Kenyans start reclaiming their country so that they feel that they have a country which they enjoy living in.
Majid Jomo, you get the last word.
Thank you. Our country and many, all the countries, all the governments get their money from taxes. And that is what our government should concentrate on, getting money from taxes and not getting money by doing business. And the other thing the government should do is to enable wananchi to make money so that they can get more money from wananchi. It's not just a question of getting taxes. And let them empower us. Let them make infrastructure so that wananchi can be able to make money.
Okay.
2, the time has come when we have to devolve most of the things that are supposed to be done. If it's like the fertilizer, importation of fertilizer, why do the national government has to do importation of fertilizer, which is an agricultural product, and agriculture is devolved? Let every county do its own business of importing its own fertilizer through traders in those constituencies, so that we can even devolve this corruption that is in fertilizer. It can be devolved to many levels, and then we can have money, flowing through many pockets in the country. And once we do that, we will start getting people. We will start getting Wanjiku with money on the ground.
Indeed.
And the prices will come down.
Absolutely.
And we'll have a successful Kenya, which we will be proud of.
The conversation, of course, is bigger than we are. It's bigger than the time we have. I want to appreciate our guests for tonight. Arnold Maliba, Head of Policy and Public Affairs at UDA. Joshua Kamwere, he is Member of Legislative Affairs ISPAC. Kalimulu, MP for Kitui Central, and last but not least, Honorable Jude Njomo, former Member of Parliament for Kiambu. The conversation has been, is the economy working for ground? And just an update, the Executive Office of the President, State House, is looking for short-term consultants in macroeconomics, microeconomics, agricultural economics, natural resource economics. Perhaps you might want to also go ahead and chime in your application. My name is George Maringa. On Sign Language has been Rodo Nyamai. Good night from Nairobi. As always, stay safe and be kind to one another.